It had been 3 years since Linda moved into her son Eric's house. After her husband passed away, she sold their family home and gave most of the money to Eric to help him renovate his place. In return, he promised she'd always have a room in his home, a safe, warm place to live out her later years, surrounded by family. At first, things felt fine. Linda cooked dinner most nights, picked up the kids from school when needed, helped with laundry, and kept the house running while Eric and his wife, Tessa, worked full-time. She didn't mind. In fact, she liked staying busy. She felt needed. And she loved being close to her grandchildren. But over time, little things started changing. Tessa began working from home. First, she took over the kitchen table. Then she claimed a corner of the living room. Eventually, she started complaining that the house was too crowded and that she couldn't concentrate. Linda overheard arguments between Eric and Tessa at night. Then, one Saturday morning, while Linda was out grocery shopping, something happened that she hadn't expected, even from Tessa. When she returned, her room, the bedroom Eric had promised would always be hers, was empty. The bed was gone, the drawers cleared out. In its place was a sleek desk, a new office chair, and bookshelves lining the walls. Tessa stood in the doorway, smiling awkwardly. "Hope you don't mind," she said. "We needed a real home office." Linda blinked in confusion. "But where should I sleep?" Eric stepped out from the hallway and said, "Mom, we put your things in the garage. Just for now. Tessa's job is really demanding, and she needs the space. The garage is cleaned up and quiet. It's not that bad." Linda stood frozen for a few seconds, holding the grocery bag in her arms. She looked down and saw her family photo frame placed on top of a moving box. Just like that, her place in the house had been moved too. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply walked into the garage, set her bag down, and saw her belongings stacked against the wall. There was a cot on the far end with an old sheet and a single pillow. The garage smelled like motor oil and dust. The concrete floor was cold under her feet. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every sound echoed: the hum of the fridge in the kitchen above, the cars outside, the occasional barking of the neighbor's dog. She felt like a guest in a stranger's home, not a mother who had given everything to raise her son. She remembered the sacrifices she had made. How she stayed up late helping Eric with school projects. How she took on 2 jobs to help pay for his college. How she sold her jewelry after her husband died just to help him with a business loan. Every moment of support, every silent prayer she'd whispered when he was struggling, all of it flashed in her mind. But now it felt like none of it mattered. Eric had chosen comfort for his wife over dignity for his mother. Still, Linda didn't say a word. The next day, she made breakfast like she always did. Pancakes for the kids. Eggs for Eric. Coffee for Tessa. No one mentioned the move. No one asked if she had slept well. No one seemed to notice the circles under her eyes. At lunch, she heard Tessa joking on the phone with a friend. "We finally converted that extra room into my dream office. So much better than cluttering the living room. Honestly, I don't know how I managed before." Linda stood by the sink, quietly washing dishes. She didn't cry, but something inside her broke. Later that evening, her youngest grandchild, Lily, came into the garage holding a drawing. "Grandma, why are you sleeping here now? Isn't this where Daddy keeps the lawn mower?" Linda smiled softly and hugged her. "Just for a little while, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make strange decisions." Lily blinked. "It's cold here. I don't like it." Linda tucked the drawing away and kissed her on the forehead. "It's okay, baby. Grandma's fine." But she wasn't. She had never felt so invisible. Days passed. No one mentioned her move again. It became normal. Eric didn't ask how she was doing. Tessa barely spoke unless she needed something. The kids noticed less and less. Everyone seemed to move on. But Linda didn't. Every night in that garage, she thought about her life. About how much she had given up, not just for her son, but for others. How many times she had said yes when she wanted to say no. How many times she had stayed quiet when she should have spoken up. And slowly, an idea began to grow in her heart. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want to yell or fight. She just wanted peace. Real peace. The kind you find when you stop letting people walk over you. So she started making plans. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't hint at anything. But late at night, when everyone was asleep, she would open her small notebook and write in it addresses, savings, small numbers. She checked listings. She called an old friend quietly. One night, she folded her apron, tucked it into her suitcase, and zipped it shut. She stood in the center of the garage and looked around one last time. It wasn't just a storage room. It had become a symbol of how forgotten she had become. But that was about to change. Linda set her alarm for 5 a.m. and went to sleep with a calm heart. Tomorrow, she would no longer be the quiet, invisible woman in the garage. She would walk away, not because she was weak, but because she finally remembered her worth. And sometimes silence is everything. The alarm rang softly at 5 a.m. Linda turned it off without hesitation. She had been awake for a while, lying on the thin mattress in the cold garage, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. The concrete under her back had made her body ache all night, but the ache in her chest had hurt more. And now, as the house slept above her, she sat up and took a long, deep breath. Today was the day. No more waiting. No more hoping someone would notice how she felt. Linda moved quietly, not because she was afraid, but because she had nothing left to say. She folded her worn cardigan, zipped her modest suitcase, and looked around the garage one last time. The old boxes, the smell of oil, the faint outline of her family portrait half covered in dust. It all seemed to echo the same message. You don't belong here. She placed a note on the kitchen counter. It was written with steady hands, in her neat cursive. Thank you for everything. Please take care of the children. I'll be fine. Mom. That was it. No anger. No guilt. Just a quiet goodbye. By 6 a.m., Linda had stepped out of the house with her suitcase rolling softly behind her. The sun had just begun to rise, and the street was empty. No one saw her leave. No one heard the door close. And perhaps the most painful part? No one noticed. Linda didn't go to a friend's house. She didn't rent a hotel room. She already had a place ready. For months, ever since the moment Tessa began making her feel like a burden, Linda had been saving. Quietly, carefully. Every birthday check she received, every small side gig she could do, every dollar she saved from skipping her own needs, she had tucked away for this moment. She had found a small rental, a modest, one-bedroom apartment about 30 minutes away. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The landlord, a kind woman named Sarah, handed her the keys with a smile and said, "You've got the corner unit. Lots of morning sun." That morning, Linda stepped into her new apartment, placed her suitcase on the wooden floor, and simply stood in silence. The walls were empty. The furniture was basic. But the air felt clean. She wasn't surrounded by criticism. She wasn't sleeping next to storage boxes. She wasn't invisible anymore. She made a cup of tea and drank it by the window. And for the first time in years, she exhaled. That evening, Linda unpacked her belongings slowly. She hung her clothes neatly, arranged a few books on the small shelf, and placed a framed photo of her late husband on the nightstand. "You'd be proud of me," she whispered to the picture. I didn't shout. I didn't fight. I just walked away. The next few days passed quietly but peacefully. She explored her new neighborhood. She found a small cafe nearby where she sat and read newspapers. She bought a potted plant and placed it on her windowsill. She called her old friend Marianne and even joined a local senior painting class after seeing a flyer on the wall. She smiled more. She slept better. And with each passing day, she began to feel like herself again. Meanwhile, back at Eric and Tessa's house, things didn't go as smoothly. At first, it was calm, because they didn't notice she was gone. Tessa used the room freely as her office. Eric assumed Linda had gone for a few days to visit a friend. No one even read the note. But on the third day, Lily, the youngest grandchild, asked, "Where's Grandma?" Tessa looked up from her laptop. "She's in the garage, sweetie." Lily frowned. "No, she's not. I checked. I wanted to show her my drawing." Eric paused. "She didn't tell you she was going somewhere?" Tessa shrugged. "Maybe she went to Marianne's." But the kids kept asking. They were used to her being around. She made pancakes. She helped with homework. She was the one who knew how to braid Lily's hair and always remembered what snacks Tim liked after school. By day 5, the kids were cranky. Meals were rushed. The laundry sat in baskets. The house felt off balance. Eric finally looked at the kitchen counter and saw the note. His heart sank. He read the short message twice, then looked at Tessa. She left. Tessa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean left? She's coming back, right?" Eric didn't answer. Something about the calm way his mother had written the note didn't feel like a quick visit. It felt final. He tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. He sent a text. No reply. He even called Marianne, who only said, "Linda's doing fine. She just needed a little space." Tessa scoffed. She's being dramatic. She could have just said something. Eric didn't respond, because deep down he knew. His mother wasn't being dramatic. She had been pushed out, slowly, quietly, and without any of them really noticing, until she was gone. On the 6th day, Eric came home late from work. The house was messy. Tessa was snapping at the kids. Dinner was burnt. The baby was crying. The dryer had broken and clothes were still damp. And for the first time, he truly saw it. Linda had been the one holding everything together. Not just chores. Love. Warmth. Peace. And now that she was gone, the house felt colder. He went into the garage. The cot was still there. But it was empty. Dust had settled on the boxes. Her blanket was folded. He sat down on the edge of the mattress and put his head in his hands. What had he done? On the 7th day, Eric called her again. This time, his voice in the voicemail was different. Not demanding. Not defensive. Just broken. Mom, it's me. Please call me. I miss you. The kids miss you. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I should have stood up for you. I should have said something when Tessa took your room. I wasn't thinking. Please just let me know you're okay. Linda listened to the voicemail while sitting on her new sofa, sipping tea. She didn't cry, but her eyes softened. She didn't reply. Not yet, because peace, once found, is something worth protecting. By the 9th day, she had filled her apartment with little things, flowers, books, soft blankets. She had repainted the wall behind her bed in pale lavender. She even made cookies and took a few to her neighbor across the hall. Her heart still felt sore, but it wasn't bleeding anymore. It was healing. Then came the 10th day. Another call. This time, her phone rang longer. She let it go to voicemail. Mom, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Please call me. Please. I can't stop thinking about what I let happen. You gave me everything, and I treated you like an extra box in the garage. I'm so sorry. Linda played the message twice. Then she put the phone down. She looked around her new space. The painting she made in class was hanging near the window. Her teacup was warm in her hand. The sound of birds chirping came through the open balcony door. And she whispered gently to herself. They didn't even notice when I was gone. But I noticed what I had become. She wasn't angry. She wasn't vengeful. She was simply done being invisible. And now, the woman they had once taken for granted was learning how to live. Not for others, but for herself. It had been 10 days since Linda left her son's house. 10 full days of silence. 10 full days without her cooking breakfast, folding laundry, or kissing her grandkids goodnight. And for Eric, those 10 days felt heavier with each passing moment. At first, things were manageable. Tessa still worked from her new home office, and the kids were distracted with school. Eric kept telling himself Linda would be back any day now. She just needed a break, he told Tessa on the 4th day. She's just being dramatic, Tessa replied. But deep down, Eric wasn't so sure anymore. His mother had never walked away from anything. Not when his father died. Not when money was tight. Not when he made mistakes in college. She had always stayed. Always helped. Always said, I'm here, son. We'll figure it out. But now? Now she was gone, and there wasn't even a return date. By the 5th day, the house began to feel different. The living room was messy. The kids weren't eating as well. Tessa burned dinner twice in a row and snapped at everyone. The laundry piled up, and nobody could remember where the extra towels were kept. Eric found himself looking for things Linda used to do automatically. The coffee didn't taste the same. The house felt colder, even though the heater was on. And Lily, the youngest, kept asking the same question every night before bed. Is Grandma coming back tomorrow? Each time, Eric swallowed the lump in his throat and lied. Soon, baby. She just needed to rest. But the truth was he didn't know. On the 7th day, Eric called her again. Voicemail. Mom, it's me again. I miss you. I think we all do. I know I haven't been fair to you. I let Tessa take your room. I let you sleep in the garage. God, I didn't realize what I was doing. Please call me. Still no reply. That night, he found himself sitting alone in the garage. The cot was still there, neatly folded. The blanket was untouched. Her slippers sat at the corner, quiet reminders of the woman who used to live there like a shadow. Eric looked around and realized what he'd done. He hadn't just allowed his wife to take Linda's room. He had allowed them to take her dignity. She wasn't a maid. She wasn't a babysitter. She was his mother, and he had treated her like an inconvenience. By the 9th day, Eric couldn't sleep. He got up in the middle of the night and went through his phone, reading old messages from Linda. Most of them were short. Don't forget your umbrella today. Forecast says rain. I left your favorite tea in the cabinet. Pancakes are ready, just warm them up. I'm proud of you, even if you don't hear it enough. He read them again and again. He had never replied to most of them. He had taken them for granted. Taken her for granted. He finally wrote a long message. He didn't hit send. He just stared at the words. I miss you more than I can explain. I'm so sorry I didn't protect your place in our home. I thought you would always be there. But now I know you were tired. You were hurt. And I let you down. He deleted it. Then rewrote it. Then deleted it again. Because no message felt enough. What he really wanted was to hear her voice again. To say sorry while looking her in the eyes. But she wasn't answering. On the 10th day, Eric got desperate. He called her again. And again. Finally, on the 3rd try, the call connected. His heart jumped. Mom. There was silence on the other end. He spoke quickly, nervously. Mom, it's me. Please don't hang up. I've been trying to reach you for days. I've been worried sick. Are you okay? Linda's voice was soft, calm. I'm okay. Eric nearly broke into tears. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how much I hurt you until you were gone. The kids miss you. I miss you. I know I can't undo it, but please come back. Please. There was a pause. Then Linda said, Eric, do you know what I did the day I left? Eric wiped his face. No. I woke up in the cold, packed a small suitcase, and walked out of a house I helped build, with no one noticing. Not even my own son. Eric's breath caught in his throat. She continued, I raised you. I held your hand when you were sick. I stood beside you when you failed. I never once made you feel like you didn't belong. But somehow, I ended up sleeping beside old paint cans and a lawn mower. Eric's voice cracked. You're right. I failed you. No, Linda said gently. You forgot me. Eric didn't speak. Sometimes forgetting someone, she said, is worse than failing them. Eric swallowed hard. Is there any way I can make it right? Linda was silent for a moment. Then she said, I'm not coming back to sleep in the garage, Eric. I'm not coming back to make coffee and sweep floors and be invisible. If I return, it will be on different terms. Eric nodded, though she couldn't see him. Anything. Whatever you want. I just want you back in our lives. Linda said quietly, I'll think about it. Before hanging up, she added, Tell the children I love them. But tell them I'm learning to love myself again, too. The call ended. Eric sat alone in the dark, phone in hand, and realized something important. His mother wasn't asking for revenge. She wasn't demanding anything. She was setting a boundary, one he had never expected. And in that moment, he finally understood. She hadn't walked away because she was weak. She had walked away because it was the strongest thing she could do. Meanwhile, Linda sat on her balcony, phone in her lap, wrapped in a warm sweater. The city lights shimmered below. She sipped her tea slowly, feeling the night air on her face. She didn't feel angry anymore. She felt free. And as she closed her eyes, she whispered, You noticed me too late, son. But I've finally started noticing myself. Linda stood by her window that morning, a cup of warm tea cradled in her hands. Outside, the sky was overcast. The city below moved quietly. People walked to work. Buses passed. But up here, in her small apartment, everything felt still. It had been nearly 2 weeks since she left her son's house. And 3 days since Eric had finally said the words she had waited years to hear. I failed you. That call still echoed in her head. Not because it hurt, but because it healed something inside her. Not completely, but enough. She had always imagined that if she ever left, her family would collapse. That Eric would fall apart. That Tessa would realize her mistakes. But none of that had truly mattered anymore. Because Linda hadn't left to make a point. She left to find herself again. And now, as she sat in the quiet of her own space, surrounded by soft pillows, potted plants, and the scent of fresh linen, she no longer felt like someone's leftover. She felt like someone. Later that day, she received a text from Eric. The kids want to see you. I understand if you're not ready. But they miss you badly. So do I. Linda didn't reply immediately. She set the phone aside and went for a walk. She passed the little cafe on the corner where the barista now knew her name. She visited the small bookstore down the street. She picked up a book on women's memoirs and tucked it under her arm. It was in that bookstore, surrounded by quiet shelves and soft music, that she realized she was no longer afraid of being alone. She had spent so much of her life serving, giving, and staying silent. She had forgotten what her own voice sounded like when it wasn't apologizing. Now she heard it clearly, and it was strong. That evening, Linda called Eric. He answered immediately. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm okay," she said. "I didn't think you'd call." "I wasn't going to," she replied honestly. "But I've had time to think. And I believe the kids deserve to know the truth. And so do you." Eric sat down on the other end, silent. Linda continued, her voice soft but direct. "For years, I gave everything I had. I raised you. I gave you the money from your father's life insurance. I moved into your home because I thought we were family. And slowly, I stopped existing. I became someone who just filled in the gaps." "Mom, let me finish," she said gently. Eric fell silent again. "You and Tessa made a choice to move me into the garage. Maybe you didn't mean to hurt me. Maybe you thought it was just for work. But no one asked how I felt. No one asked if I was okay. You just decided I didn't need a room. Didn't need respect. And that's what broke me. Not the space, not the floor, not the cold, but the fact that I didn't matter anymore." Eric's voice cracked. "You do matter. You always have. I was blind. I was lazy. I let it happen, and I've hated myself for it every day since." Linda's voice softened again. "I know you're sorry. I believe you. But I also want you to understand something, Eric. I'm not angry. I'm not punishing you. I'm healing. And that means I need distance right now." Eric whispered, "Does that mean you're never coming back?" She paused, then said, "That depends on how you rebuild what was broken." There was silence on the line. Then Eric said, "I want to make things right. I want to earn your trust again." Linda nodded. "Then start by being a better father, a better husband, and a better son. Not by buying flowers or saying sorry, but by showing it in your choices. I don't need a room in your house, Eric. I needed a place in your heart." He choked back tears. "You have it, Mom. I swear you do." She smiled faintly. "Good. Because this time, I'm not coming back to serve anyone. I'm coming back, if I do, to be respected. Not for what I do, but for who I am." 3 days later, Linda received a handwritten card in the mail. It was from Lily, her granddaughter. "Dear Grandma, I miss you a lot. Daddy said I could come stay with you one day if it's okay. I promise not to ask for pancakes every morning. Just hugs. Love. Lily." Linda held the letter to her chest and cried for the first time since she left. Not out of pain. Out of love. On Saturday, Eric brought the kids to visit. They stood at her door, shy and unsure. When she opened it, the children ran into her arms, tears in their eyes. "Grandma." Eric stood at the door. He didn't enter. Linda looked at him. He said softly, "I'll wait outside. I want you to decide if I'm welcome." Linda nodded and let the children in. They filled the apartment with laughter and warmth. They ran around, asking about her new plants, tasting her cookies, drawing on the coffee table with colored pencils. After an hour, Linda stepped outside. Eric was sitting on the bench down the hall. She walked up to him and said, "Come in. But just for a moment. I'm not ready for everything to go back to how it was." He stood up, nodded, and said the words she had never heard from him before. "Whatever you need. This time, I'm listening." Linda never moved back into her son's house. But from that day on, her relationship with Eric changed. He called more. He asked how she was, not what she could do. Tessa apologized in her own time, not with excuses, but with effort. The kids visited her every Sunday. And every time they hugged her goodbye, they whispered, "We love you, Grandma." But the biggest change? Linda never again allowed herself to be treated like a guest in her own life. She joined a book club, took weekend painting classes, even started writing her own story. Because the moment she left the garage wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a woman who finally remembered who she was. A mother, a grandmother, a woman who gave everything. And now, she was giving something back. To herself.